Hello there, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. Are we heading for a rail strike? The RMT union votes overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action hitting services across the southeast.
The Prime Minister apologises again over the Partygate scandal as the long-awaited Sue Gray report is published along with new photographs. We'll have reaction from southeast MPs.
Pop-up waste disposal sites open as rubbish stacks up in Wealdon. The bin strike now entering its fourth week.
And with some British butterflies under threat, I'll be finding out how we can all help these beautiful insects thrive.
Good evening. Rail passengers could face major disruption in the coming weeks after members of the RMT union voted overwhelmingly to strike in a dispute over job security and pay.
South Eastern and Southern are among the services affected, but the move has been criticised as premature by the government.
Well, Network Rail says the strikes are disastrous for the industry's recovery from the pandemic. Tony Green is at Tunbridge Wells station for us this evening. Tony, 89% of RMT members voted for strike action, which is a pretty significant number.
Well, that's right, Matt. The RMT actually say this is the biggest mandate they've had for industrial action since the network was privatised in the 1990s. They want a decent pay rise for their members, they want job security, and they want no compulsory redundancies. This from the RMT earlier.
Well, our members are coming into the third year, lots of them, of a pay freeze. They've worked right throughout the pandemic. During that period, we've seen billions in taxpayers' money go through the industry into dividends and shareholdings, off to tax havens, and our members want a fair deal. The cost of living crisis is really biting, so they want us to achieve a pay rise for those workers and some job security. We don't think that's unreasonable in the current circumstances.
Now, there is a glimmer of hope for passengers who use Southern Rail services or Thameslink or the Gatwick Express, because RMT members who work for those companies have voted for industrial action, but that stops short of strike action. But the Rail Delivery Group, which represents the rail operating companies, they say this has come at a bad time, it's premature, at a moment when the industry is still trying to recover from the effects of the pandemic.
These are difficult times for everybody at the moment, and as train operators we want to be able to be in a position to offer a pay rise to our people, but we need to do that in the context of the significant challenges that the railway faces. We need to make sure that we're keeping our costs as low as possible, not taking any more from the taxpayer who is under considerable pressure, funding things like the NHS and other public services at the moment.
Now, passenger numbers are down here at Tunbridge Wells. Before the pandemic, there were 3.6 million entries and exits here every year. Last year, that was more like 730,000. We asked people in Tunbridge Wells what they thought about the prospect of strike action here in Tunbridge Wells.
I think everyone's got the right to campaign for what they feel they need, but I think it's quite easily forgotten the effect it has on everyone else, and I know that is the point.
I agree, they do need to have a pay rise if that's the case. However, is it going to inflict on the cost of travel? That's the only thing.
The majority of them are paid a reasonable salary, but some aren't. It's about time they started sharing around some of the money Railtrack's getting.
Probably yes. If they've gone to all the trouble of striking, or are going to go to the trouble of striking, I would imagine that they do deserve what they're asking for.
Now, no dates have yet been announced. They could come as early as mid-June. But industry insiders suggest that the RMT is actually serious about negotiating, and having this backing from their members for strike action just strengthens their position around the negotiating table.
OK, Tony, for the time being, thank you very much indeed. In other news, a major clear-up is underway after widespread flooding in Worthing yesterday afternoon. It followed bursts of heavy rain across the region. West Sussex Fire and Rescue Service say they're currently working with Southern Water to drain the areas and make them safe.
The area surrounding a police station in Sussex was closed to the public today following the discovery of a live device. The ordnance was handed in as lost property to officers at the Chatsworth Road police station in Worthing. Nearby roads have now reopened after the item was removed by specialist officers.
An inspection on a P&O ferry is currently underway in Dover to ensure it's safe to sail. The Pride of Canterbury is the last of 10 ships to be checked by the Coast Guard at the request of the ferry company.
In a bid to eliminate the virus hepatitis C, 96% of inmates at Lewes Prison have been tested. 9 were found to have it, with all now being treated. The project by University Hospital Sussex is supporting a key NHS target to remove the virus as a major health threat.
A man's been sent to prison for assaulting a paramedic at a Kent hospital. It happened at the William Harvey Hospital in Ashford back in February. 24-year-old Leon Chatfield admitted assaulting an emergency worker. He's been jailed for 8 weeks in order to pay the victim £200.
The Prime Minister has apologised again over the Partygate scandal after Sue Gray published her long-awaited report into gatherings at Downing Street.
Well, it found that senior leadership in Number 10 must bear responsibility for the culture which led to lockdown rules being broken.
Our political correspondent Phil Hornby is at Westminster for us. Phil, not everyone is buying this latest apology.
No, they're not, Sangeeta. We got lots of new information today, lots of new photographs too. Pictures, for instance, of the famous birthday bash for the Prime Minister in the Cabinet Room. Pictures too of leaving dues for various people who were leaving Downing Street. We got lots of detail today about people being sick, about red wine being thrown against the walls, about officials boasting that we got away with a certain drinks party. But to be honest, no new killer fact that could really do for Boris Johnson, which is why the Prime Minister was able to go to the House of Commons today, as you say, again to apologise and also to repeat that he'd never intentionally misled MPs.
When I came to this House and said in all sincerity that the rules and guidance would be followed at all times, it was what I believed to be true.
Members opposite must finally do their bit. They must tell the current inhabitant, their leader, that this has gone on too long. Absolutely. The game is up.
Sir Keir Starmer challenging Tory backbenchers there to move against the Prime Minister and call for a vote of no confidence in him. And some MPs from our region, Tory MPs, are certainly not happy.
You serve to lead, and you lead by example. Given the extent of rule breaking in Number 10, does my right honourable friend believe that what he has said to the House since about there being no rule breaking passed the test of reasonableness?
But other MPs say it's time to move on.
The focus of our government must be laser-like in tackling the cost of living crisis that has come about as a result of the COVID pandemic and Ukraine, and that this is the concern over and above everything else of my constituents.
But what do voters really think? We've been asking people in Tunbridge Wells where the Conservatives recently lost control of the council.
I believe that rules were broken at a time when people were having great difficulties, and that, if anything, was going to change my voting habits, it would have been that, not the report that comes out today.
Anybody who had an ounce of moral fibre would probably do the right thing, but I suspect they're not going to, so move on.
I think if they wanted a party, after what they've done for this country, they deserve a party.
People have, become used to that sort of thing occurring, double standards. I think it's also an indication as to what the government truly felt about what was going on when COVID was at its height, and that they were locking everybody down, and yet they were obviously not that scared about it or worried about it. So I think it's symptomatic of what they thought about the virus as a thing.
The government desperately want to change the subject, and tomorrow they will, with more help announced to get people through the cost of living crisis.
Phil, thank you.
Now, the first of planned pop-up waste disposal sites opened in the Wealdon district of Sussex this morning as a strike by refuse workers entered its 4th week.
Rubbish has been piling up since members of the GMB union went on strike over pay rates. The council's waste contractor Biffa today holding talks. Andy Dickinson reports.
Residents delivering their rubbish today to waiting trucks in Hailsham. Domestic waste being collected here but not recycling. A local councillor sharing his constituents' frustration. They're angry. They're angry. There's no two ways about it. I mean, the rubbish is piling up all over the place. These have been offered 17% and they've turned it down. So how can they justify that? Seriously, I don't know that they can. Following similar strikes in Brighton, Eastbourne and Worthing, this walkout is now in its 4th week with 2 more weeks expected. Pop-up sites like this one offering some respite, at least for residents.
I wish they weren't doing it, but I understand that people have a grievance and that they feel that they need to. So I wish that it finishes soon. And I didn't really want to have to bring my rubbish, but I thought, well, if it stays in the bin, it'll carry on rotting.
I think it's disgraceful. I mean, I've just had to clear my bin out. It's taken me about half an hour or more just because it's full of gunk, it's full of maggots. Put it in my car, drive 6 or 7 miles to come down here to get rid of it. I think it's disgraceful.
Talks between waste contractor Biffa and the G&B union took place this morning, but are broken down by lunchtime, with the union receiving a new offer.
Before they came back into the room for the last time, I thought we were really close. But it's Biffa's way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it appears. And they potentially have managed to do that, but again, it's down to our members as whether this will be good enough for them to accept. Any percentage of a low pay rate is a low pay rise. So we're talking about hourly increases. That's where our guys can actually see where they think there's a benefit to them.
Biffa reiterating their disappointment that increased pay offers that they say would show parity with other councils have so far been refused. These makeshift bin men and women just hoping this won't become another daily chore. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Hailsham.
Now you're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up on the programme, why people with hearing loss are struggling to access healthcare. We look at the importance of British Sign Language.
And we're on the South Downs as experts predict 2/5 of British butterflies could die out if we don't do something to tackle climate change.
And more, of course, on all of our stories today on our website. itv.com/Meridian is the address. You can call us, the number's on the screen right there. And don't forget to follow us on social media.
And the ITV Evening News continues here at 6:30 with all the details. Mary Nightingale.
Coming up, the report into rule-breaking parties at Downing Street is out, and it is a difficult read for Number 10. Sue Gray says senior leaders must take responsibility for the party culture behind closed doors. So what now for the Prime Minister? We will have the very latest on the shocking US school shooting, which left 19 children and 2 adults dead. And what did the model Kate Moss have to say at her ex-Johnny Depp's libel trial? We have all the details. Do join me with those stories and much more at 6:30.
It's been revealed that across our region, thousands of council houses are standing empty despite the huge demand for homes. In Brighton and Hove alone, 250 properties have been empty for an average of 6 months.
Well, the City Council says many need refurbishing before they can be re-let, and the work has been delayed by the pandemic. But campaigners say more must be done to bring empty accommodation, whether publicly or privately owned, back into use. Malcolm Shaw reports.
According to the charity Shelter, 1 person in 78 in Brighton and Hove is homeless, making it the 3rd worst area in the country. There's a huge demand for accommodation of all sorts, including social housing. But it's been revealed that more than 250 council properties have been standing empty for an average of almost 6 months each. This flat is understood to be just one of them.
When I got my council flat, things were slightly easier and different then. This flat behind me has been empty for nearly a year, and I know of 2 properties around the corner that have been empty for over a year. And I know many local families that could benefit from the use of these properties, and I think it's appalling. I know people that have been waiting more than 10 years and they're still in Band C, and they've been told that they probably won't ever get a property. Yet there's all these properties that are empty.
The council says that over the last 3 years, it's provided more than 300 new homes across the city. 42 flats are under construction here in Port Slade under a project called New Homes for Neighbourhoods. but there's a backlog of work to bring older properties up to scratch, and that's why some stand empty for so long. The council blames the pandemic for slowing down the refurbishment of empty properties, but it's now recruited more staff and specialist contractors. It says that it let 500 properties in the last year, more than twice the number for the previous 12 months. But opposition councillors say many of the properties could be re-let to people in need, with renovations done later.
It's disgusting that they're all empty for so long. I know some of them need work done, but many of people's home needs work done to them. They could be living in them. They're quite adequate for them to be living in. It's just that they might need a new kitchen. But the family could move in on the promise that they're going to get a new kitchen in a few months' time. I've never known the housing in such a bad way with the length of time it takes. At one time, it was taking 21 days to move people around. Now it's months and months and months before it's turned around and somebody's got a home.
Social housing only accounts for a fraction of the total number of empty properties across our region. Most are privately owned. Nationally, there are around 1 million homes empty at any one time.
It is a staggering number of homes in the context of a huge national housing shortage. And councils have for a long time been calling for improved powers from government so that they can take these homes over temporarily, rent them out, do them up, whatever is needed. I mean, I think you need, if you like, carrots and sticks. You need incentives and you need, powers to enforce, if you like. At the moment, government's just saying to councils, charge them more tax, and eventually you'll force them to bring them back into use. And that seems to be a rather blunt instrument, and it takes quite a while to kick in.
In Brighton and Hove, the council has around 12,000 properties and just over 2% of them are currently empty. The authority says it's working flat out to re-let them as quickly as possible. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Brighton.
Now, a survey of teachers and other staff working in our schools has raised concerns about how they keep children safe.
Well, it's prompted calls from campaigners to improve safeguarding procedures. Well, the government says it's producing new guidance later this year. Lauren Hall reports.
So we're going to look at this question today. How do we keep you safe at Oak Hill Academy?
At this primary school, the safety and welfare of its pupils is a top priority.
Who are the trusted adults around in the school building that we can talk to if there is an issue to help us feel safer? Jack?
Miss Darks.
Miss Darks, good. Chloe?
Class teachers.
Your class teachers, yep, your class teachers as well.
Special sessions like these help with safeguarding, so young people know what to do if they need to raise any concerns.
Safeguarding is vitally important for the children's learning in school. If the children don't feel safe in school and confident to talk about the issues that they may or may not be experiencing, and to be able to support each other in that way, and to have that trusted adult that they feel they can talk to, their learning wouldn't happen.
That's why other schools are being encouraged to take the same approach. In the South East, a recent survey of teachers and other staff found 3/4 are seeing more safeguarding concerns now than before the pandemic. Just under a quarter say they don't think pupils feel safe at their school, while more than a third say they don't feel there's sufficient guidance for dealing with allegations of violence and sexual harassment. It's a big concern for actor Matthew McVarish. He was sexually abused as a child by his uncle, Terry McMonagall, who since died after being convicted and jailed for 6 years. Matthew has chosen to speak out publicly to highlight the importance of safeguarding in schools.
When I was at school, I was being sexually abused regularly by my uncle, and that happened throughout my entire time at primary school and for the first 2 years of high school. And I never really disclosed until I was 25. I did make attempts to speak to teachers about it, but there was never an opportunity, and I also felt that it would be my fault for creating this big courtroom drama if I ever opened my mouth and said what was being done to me at home. So for me, it's about looking at that situation and saying, this can't happen anymore.
In a statement, the government told us abuse in any form is unacceptable, which is why we've updated our safeguarding guidance and are increasing resources for teachers. To help schools teach key topics such as sexual abuse and harassment effectively, we're producing new guidance later this year. Meanwhile, experts say safeguarding needs to be prioritised by everyone.
It's a whole school community responsibility.
Because ultimately, if a young person is saying something, we have to listen to that. Whatever it is, we need to listen to it and we need to do something about it.
Back at Oak Hill Academy, these pupils told us what they gained from today's session.
I found it very important and useful because now if maybe I feel bad or something happened to me, I feel a lot more free to tell someone. So I feel a lot more free to tell my friends or tell teachers around the school.
Also, when you're feeling like sad or lonely, you can always speak to someone and you can get it off your chest.
That's what the school wants. And teachers hope by having these conversations, it will help pupils start a conversation with them. Lauren Hall, ITV News.
There are concerns that deaf people are struggling to access adequate healthcare because of lack of services for people who use British Sign Language.
Yes, it's used by more than 87,000 deaf people in the UK for whom English may be a second or third language. Here's Catherine Walker.
Jessica Hinton was born deaf and has always used British Sign Language. This means she often relies on the help of interpreters to communicate. But when she gave birth to her first child, she was told there wasn't one available.
There was no communication, really. I mean, my partner at the time was with me and I was able to converse with him through lip reading, but then obviously I was on gas and air and I wasn't really getting the information properly, so it was really difficult.
British Sign Language is used by over 87,000 deaf people in the UK. But a recent survey found that 67% of deaf people had no accessible method to contact their GP. 81% said their communication needs were unmet in a recent appointment, and 77% said they rarely or never receive accessible healthcare information.
Research shows that many deaf people have an average reading age of about 9 years old, and this is linked to language deprivation. So it's really, really important that healthcare providers and services book an interpreter and provide information in BSL so people can make those decisions about their own health. Through the written language, they lose power.
This communication barrier is a big worry for Rosalind, a GP in Hive.
The main issue would be if they had an urgent problem on the day, because you can't get a British Sign Language interpreter there immediately. So that would be something that we would try and negotiate round. You tend to rely on the patient bringing their relative or friend with them who acts as an interpreter. But that might not always be appropriate depending on the nature of the problem.
It's these accessibility issues that Claire wants to address. A BSL user herself, she's leading a trial to improve communication for deaf patients.
What I would like to see happen is the hospital make it easier access for deaf people, and understanding that deaf people have got different communication needs, and to use the most appropriate support, communication support, qualified British Sign Language users, for example, and so that the deaf person, the BSL user, fully understands their health condition.
In a statement, the NHS said they are reviewing their services to ensure that people's communication needs are met. But until things improve, BSL users like Jessica worry that it's their health that will suffer. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
Now, experts are warning that action is needed to prevent butterflies dying out, with more than 2/5 of British species threatened with extinction.
We've sent our weather presenter, Philippa Drew, out to the South Downs to find out how we can help these beautiful creatures thrive. But Pip, not the best weather for butterfly spotting.
No, it really isn't the best weather today. Really quite breezy, as you can probably tell, and we've had a fair few showers rattling through as well. But a bit of bad weather is the least of our worries when it comes to the British butterfly population. A report published today has given us some pretty alarming statistics, but I am joined by a man who knows all about the report and all about British butterflies, Director of Conservation at the charity Butterfly Conservation, Dr. Dan Hoare. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today. So this report published today, known as the Red List, can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, Pip. So red listing is the international standard by which we assess extinction risk for species. And butterfly conservation scientists have done the number crunching for 62 British butterflies. But the worrying news is that half of our remaining British butterflies are classed as either threatened or near threatened, which means they are at risk of extinction if we don't do something.
Goodness me, so what are the main problems facing our butterflies at the moment?
Well, we've been facing problems like land use change, so that's the way we farm our countryside, the way we manage woodlands, development pressure, but also new risks like rapidly changing climate and nitrogen pollution.
But it's not all bad news, is it? I know through the work of the butterfly conservation, some almost extinct species have been brought back from the brink, haven't they?
Yeah, that's right. The good news is that where we can work with local communities, with farmers and land managers to create the right habitats for these threatened species, we can really reverse their fortunes. So a species like the Duke of Burgundy, which is on the wing now across the southeast, that species was in real trouble, but over 15 years we've been able to create the right habitat for it, and actually it's now downgraded its extinction risk as a result of that work.
Well, that's fabulous news. So hope on the horizon. And for those watching at home who'd like to do their bit to help, have you got any top tips?
Yeah, well, there's loads people can do to get involved, and we need all the help we can get. So people can record butterflies in their garden using an app or by going onto our website. They can also find tips on our website on how to manage their garden or their local park for butterflies, and they can get involved in local conservation projects.
You know, that is all such useful information. Dan, thanks so much for talking to us. So there we go, a big problem facing our British butterflies, but lots of little things we can all do to help. Of course, the question is, will the weather be improving over the next few days? As I said, it's been really breezy, quite showery, but I think fingers crossed looking a little better over the next few days.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Well, the weather has certainly been a little bit hit and miss here today, but through the next few days it looks pretty quiet. A lot of dry weather, some decent sunny spells, and feeling fairly warm in the best of the sunshine as well. Out there at the moment, still a few showers on the scene, but these soon clearing. And then for the rest of this evening and tonight, it should be largely dry with some lengthy clear spells. And it will also be pretty mild. Temperatures in towns and cities at least staying in double figures. Tomorrow morning, a decent start, probably the best of the sunshine first thing. As the day wears on, we'll start to pull in a bit more cloud from the west, but unlike today, it should stay dry, and again in the best of the brightness, feeling fairly warm. Temperatures inland peaking at around 20, perhaps locally 21 Celsius. High tides for tomorrow for Chatham just before 11 in the morning, and again just after 11 in the evening. And then beyond that, well, through Thursday night overnight into Friday, a weak cold front comes our way, bringing a bit more cloud, but again it should stay dry, and Friday itself should dawn on a fairly dry and bright note. Those fine conditions will take us into Saturday as well, but I suspect from Sunday onwards we're likely to see an increasing risk of a few more showers making their return, and it will start to feel a little bit fresher out there as well. Your pollen comes next.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
So it's a mixture of grass pollen and tree pollen at this time of year, and with fairly settled conditions on the cards over the next few days, levels will generally be in the moderate category. Do take care. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
And remember, in just a moment, it's the ITV Evening News here with Mary Nightingale.
That is it from us for the time being, though. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening. We will see you very soon.
And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.